Hello and welcome to the Big Idea Speakers Bureau virtual content series. Today we're going to be talking with Michael Hlinka, who is a professor at George Brown College, a business professor at George Brown College as well. He designed and administers the Pass the CFA program at the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. You know, Michael, before we got started, we were saying, I asked, how are the students doing during the pandemic? What are their concerns?
The students at George Brown College are very concerned. Most of the students that I'm involved with are international students. And what the international students, the reason why a lot of them study at a post-secondary education is because this will lead them into permanent residency in Canada. The way that the law works is that if you pay for a full year of tuition in post-secondary education, and you already have either a college degree, a diploma, or a university degree from your home country, you'll get a 1-year open work permit. Well, a lot of the students, in fact, the majority of them who joined this past semester in September are back in their home country and with no indication or no idea exactly when they're going to be coming into Canada. So the whole idea is you're in Canada, you're making connections, you're meeting people, you're lining up that job when you graduate. And that has just been stopped in its tracks by COVID-19.
Wow. Are they afraid of the disease at all, or just their job prospects? Like what?
Oh no, they're afraid of their job or life prospects more than the disease. 100%. That is the concern.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's rough. It's very, very, very rough. It's this cohort in particular has been hit very, very hard.
And you are teaching virtually all your courses?
Yes, everything is online, and pretty much the decision has been made that everything will be online or virtual for January for sure. And right now the expectation is we will not be back in a classroom until September of 2021.
September.
That's the expectation.
Excuse me. That's 1 full year from now.
Correct. Yeah, basically what we're seeing is that the community college system will effectively been shut down for a year and a half, if that indeed is true.
Wow.
Because we shut it down this past March. And if it opens, well, it'll be exactly 18 months if it opens in September of 2021.
Okay, so the economics then for the schools, I gather, is not good. Let's talk about, in the past, you often give talks on the economy and the economic snapshot for the country. So let's talk about Canada right now. What are the economic prospects?
It's going to be some very difficult times, I think, for an extended period of time. The fiscal stimulus is going to help with the employment market, but we've seen a huge dislocation with COVID. Commercial real estate is never going to be the same. I don't think the travel and the hospitality industry will quite ever be the same. And I think what a lot of people are underestimating here is the number of people who worked all their lives to establish small businesses. Those businesses have been wiped out. Are they going to pick it up and try to do it again? Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody can start their own business. In fact, I think very, very few people have those skill sets. And I'm wondering to what extent people are just going to be saying, you know what? It just isn't worth it. You know, what I should be looking for is a nice, cushy government job, of course, which will put pressure on government to increase employment, will increase the ratio of people working in government, in a lot of cases, not productively, to the ratio of people who are working productively. So I think that we're going to be looking at relatively depressed economic times in this country for, unfortunately, at least a decade.
Okay, that's dire. Good news being residential real estate?
Well, the only thing that's going to be happening at the same time is because of all the fiscal stimulus, the government is going to be printing money, and money. And the question is that money has to go somewhere. It has to find a home. Milton Friedman said years ago correctly that inflation is a monetary phenomenon. And what he meant by it sounds fancy, but it's very intuitive. Inflation occurs when there is more money chasing the same amount of goods, or the same amount of money chasing a fewer number of goods. And that sort of just becomes, I think, almost a common sense tautology.
Right.
So the question is, if all of this money is printed, there has to be inflation somewhere. And if the labor markets are soft, which I believe they will be, we're probably not talking about wage inflation. There's a lot of still anti-inflationary forces in the general global economy, including China. China geopolitically is worried about unemployment. So they're going to keep people working and cranking out stuff, even if it means depressing the standard of living of their own citizens. I don't think the Chinese government particularly cares about that. So if the price of the goods and services that we're buying isn't going up, the price of something has to go up. And I think what is going to happen increasingly over the next, and it might even be a 20-year period, is that Canada is going to be increasingly looked at as a safe haven for people to come here and live. I'm even reflecting on, if I were living in New York right now, I don't think that I would be particularly comfortable in that jurisdiction with everything that goes on. When you look at who the mayor of New York is, when you look at who the governor of the state of New York is, when you look at the way that the police have been completely demoralized, if I want to live in a big city that speaks English and is going to be relatively safe, well, Toronto's a pretty good option, a pretty good alternative. I think a lot of international investors are going to think like that. I also think there's going to be a flood and exodus from Europe over the next 20 years as well.
Interesting. I was going to ask about currency, but we're limited on time here, and I think we'd find more exciting topics that that we can talk about. So let's just talk about the stock market then a little bit, and the colossal disconnect between stock prices and the actual economy, both here and in the U.S.
It is a colossal disconnect, particularly in the United States. The idea that we could have stock market levels that are higher than they were a year ago, when we contrast the health of the underlying economy in October of last year compared to October of this year, is absolutely stunning. That being said, however, there is a rational reason why the stock market should be at these levels. What the Federal Reserve has done in the United States, what the Bank of Canada has done, what the Bank of England have done, has signaled that interest rates are going to be low for an extended period of time. We are going to look, the Western countries are going to look very much like Japan has looked for the past 20 years. And that's interest rates hovering around zero for an extended period of time. In fact, I think the Fed will allow inflation to go up to 3 or 4% before they even think about starting interest rates. Because what they would say is, we've got an alternative here. We can either do something that's going to crash the real economy, or we can see a slight degradation in everybody's standard of living and quality of life. And the latter is a much better policy alternative than the former, that is crashing the economy.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who keep saying, how can you keep printing this kind of money and not have inflation? And yet we haven't seen it. We haven't seen this massive spike in prices. Prices have gone up,
Correct.
but not drastically. They haven't doubled, tripled.
Correct. We haven't seen it as measured in the consumer price index in Canada or the United States. Once again, Robert, there's some pretty good reasons for that. One of the things that is not factored into the CPI is the cost of houses. The proxy for that is apartment rents, which are very different things. Because what's happened with the pandemic is a lot of people moved home for family reasons, for clothes reasons, and also to save money. So we haven't seen apartment prices and rentals go up. In fact, it's been the opposite. I've seen some indication that, for example, in San Francisco, they're actually, I think, down 20% year over year. They're still exorbitantly high, but down 20%. Rentals are dropping in New York City as well. So there's this interesting interplay where rental prices are going down, even as property values and primary residences and owned condominiums are either holding steady or actually going up. The latest numbers in Canada suggest they're actually going up year over year, in spite of COVID-19.
Wow. Okay. So look, we're just about out of time. And like before, I'd love to ask your prediction for the U.S. election. Who will win? Will they accept the result?
I think that Joe Biden is going to win a resounding victory. I think that we will look back, and Donald Trump will look back at a little bit of a more sober moment and realize that he made too many enemies for no good reason. I think that the Democrats are going to win the presidency. I think they're going to win the House. I think they're going to win the Senate. I think that they're going to do a 180 on a lot of the stuff they've talked about, like a Green New Deal and a lot of the tax stuff. Because if the Democrats do raise taxes and do push through with the kind of reforms that they've talked about, they will get slaughtered in the midterm elections in 2022. And that's one thing they don't want to see happen, because you can't, you can sort of, the press can come together and coalesce against the Republicans on the national level, but it doesn't work the same way in the local jurisdictions. So that's my prediction. Biden and the Democrats win a decisive victory, but it's much more business as usual. It'll look very much like what the economy looked like under Barack Obama, which, really wasn't that horrible. So I'm not overly concerned. And the fact that the stock market hasn't sold off, I think, is an important consideration that the fix is going to be in when it's all said and done.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That was really fun. That's a bold prediction. We'll see what happens in a month.
But who
Anyways,
do you think, then Robert, who do you think wins?
I have no idea now. No,
Really?
none. All I do know is I don't think either side is going to, I think there will be contested. I don't think it should be election day. I think it should be election week or weeks or month, because there's going to be so much fighting over mail-in ballots and fraud and this and that's at least my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't know, but time will tell. And
I think that Trump is going to resign gracefully within 24 hours. That's my prediction.
Another bold prediction.
It is another bold prediction.
That's why he's a great speaker. Everyone, we are out of time. Michael, thanks for doing this, and we're going to do it again. And be sure to be watching us at our YouTube channel and on social media, where I will be sharing these amazing videos with great speakers like Michael and more. Michael, have a great afternoon.
You too, Robert. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.